In unfortunate news coming in, tensions between India and China at the LAC have escalated. India has lost one officer and two jawans. Now, this comes at a time when the face-off has been happening for a while and when there was talk of de-escalation. So what has changed and what really happened is what we're going to find out in this live episode of Government Matters. I have with me Snehesh Alex Philip, who tracks defense for ThePrint. Do send in your questions. So Snehesh, just tell us what has happened. What is the latest news?
Well, the latest that has happened in the Ladakh, especially in Galwan, is that there was a last night there was a violent face-off, is what the Indian Army has termed it as, in which there have been casualties on both sides, as the Indian Army says. On the Indian side, three soldiers have lost their lives, which includes the commanding officer of the 16 Bihar unit that was posted in Galwan, along with a JCO and a Jawan of the Indian Army.
Right.
So as of now, senior military leaders from both sides are talking to each other to ensure that the situation doesn't escalate. But yes, this is the biggest, this is the first major violence that has taken place at the LAC since 1975.
Right.
You know, that was when 4 Assam Rifles personnel were killed after they crossed over, the McMahon line. There was a tension then.
Right.
So yes, this is the first major clash that has taken place between both countries at the LAC.
Right. So when the Indian Army says there have been casualties on both sides, do we have any idea what's happened at the Chinese side, on the Chinese side?
As of now, the numbers are purely speculative, so I don't want to get into the numbers of casualties on the Chinese side. The Indian Army hasn't specified the kind of casualties that have taken place, but I've mentioned that there have been casualties on both sides. So I would not like to get into the number.
Right. So has China reacted? What has China said so far?
China has reacted. Both Reuters as well as the Chinese daily Global Times has reported the Chinese Foreign Ministry as saying that it was India which, leveling allegations against India of having crossed the LAC in Galwan and picked up the fight. At the same time, they've also maintained that they want to carry on with the talks to ensure that the situation doesn't escalate. But Ruhi, the death of 3 soldiers, including the commanding officer itself, is a huge escalation that hasn't been seen.
As you mentioned, since 1975,
yeah, so
there hasn't
since
been
1975.
Right. So Snehesh, this happened at a time when there have been military talks, high-level military talks that have taken place between the two countries. There was talk of de-escalation. So what just suddenly triggered this?
Well, that is, this development that has taken place last night is surprising. The Indian Army statement mentions that there was a violent face-off during de-escalation process. I really wonder what is called de-escalation if clashes are taking place.
And such big clashes.
The army chief had made a statement on Saturday saying that the situation was under control and there was de-escalation that was taking place on multiple locations. At ThePrint also, we have reported that the de-escalation steps that everybody is talking about are small steps taken as confidence-building measures following the talks that was held at the corps commander level, about 2 weeks back. So there has not been any large-scale de-escalation that has really taken place. At Galwan, the situation was considered to be much better in comparison to the problem areas of Pangong. The Indian government sources, the Indian Army sources had continued to maintain that there has been no intrusion or transgression as far as the Galwan Valley is concerned. But yes, we've reported that there was a build-up of troops on both sides. There was a face-off that was taking place. Now, when soldiers are there on both sides of the LAC, they are backed by the artillery. They are backed by elements of the mechanized columns. The armored corps the tanks are also there. The Chinese use light tanks for this particular terrain and height. So the tensions was always there, but this has come as a complete surprise.
Right.
So the bits that information is still coming in. What the army has said is that it's an initial statement issued by the army. There would be more detailed information that would be coming out. So we are waiting for more information on this, Ruhi.
Right. So now what happens next? You did mention that there are high-level talks taking place now to prevent further escalation. But really, is there a game plan in place?
Well, sadly, whatever that has happened in the past has been completely overshadowed by this particular incident. It's not just a plain clash. There have been deaths of soldiers.
Right.
Now, there have been injuries of soldiers too. We're not getting into the number of soldiers who've been injured. But yes, if there have been several injuries on both sides too. But whatever has happened in the past will now be overshadowed by what this particular incident. And as I said, this is the first death at the LAC
since 75.
Since 1975. So it's a huge development. And the death included the commanding officer of the particular unit that was posted in Galwan. Interestingly, this clash took place in the evening. The commanding officer led the talks during the day in Galwan. So yesterday we had reported that there were brigade level and CO level talks at multiple locations. This was in one of the location was Galwan, the other one was in the larger hot spring area. So Patrol Point 14 is where the army says is that it's at the mouth of the Galwan. That is where the meeting was taking place, but and where both sides come and meet. But as I said earlier, that there has been a huge troop build-up. So, on the Chinese side as well as on the Indian side, because the Indians have also gone ahead and done a mirror deployment.
Right.
Now, this is a standoff or a face-off. This standoff that is happening in Galwan, there's a face-off that is happening in Pangong, and there's also a face-off standoff kind of a situation which is happening in Hot Spring area also.
Right. So now, Snehesh, as you mentioned, after over 4 decades that death has taken place at the LAC, it clearly raises a big question mark on this government and its policy towards its neighbors, particularly given that the Narendra Modi government is known to be more muscular and has constantly talked about neighborhood first. How does it impact that?
Well, this whole incident has not been, the entire standoff has not been initiated by India. It was the Chinese who had moved in the soldiers to the LOC and came into what is clearly our Indian territories in Pangong as well as in the hot spring area. They have a troop build-up in Galwan too. So the Chinese have objected to a series of road construction activities that India was doing, as discussed earlier in this similar program in the past. The Chinese feel that these road construction activities will take away the tactical advantage that China has vis-a-vis these areas in terms of movement of men and material in case of a war.
Right.
So Chinese have been objecting to, in Galwan, the Chinese objection is to a bridge that was been constructed over the Galwan Nala. Now this bridge is part of a feeder road that is being constructed from the main DBO link road that that people have been talking about. The Chinese have raised objections to it. We've just reported about 2 days back in which we have mentioned that the construction of the bridge is continuing to take place.
Right.
I've got a call from the army on.
Okay,
this.
sure. You might not want that to be recorded.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways.
Well, there is a question from Anuj Goyal. Why can't India and China decide on the border dispute like India and Bangladesh did? Snehesh.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. There was a message that was coming.
Right, Anuj Goyal. Why can't India and China decide on the border dispute like India and Bangladesh did?
Well, the border talks have been going on for years since between India and China. Now, as the LAC is an undefined, unseen line. So my colleague Nanima Basu had done this story in which there have been 22 rounds of talks that have taken place, with the last being in December last year. I think towards the end of last year. However, there has not been any forward movement per se. This is primarily because of a number of issues. For example, India's claim over the Aksai chain, which India has made it absolutely clear that it is part of the Indian territory.
Right.
The Chinese have their own claims on various issues. So the border talks will continue to happen. This would happen on a much larger scale. And it would take time. Unless then that border dispute is settled, this LAC business will continue to happen. So if there's a transgression now, it's not that eventually, let's assume there was no violence last night and the talks had succeeded in ensuring that both sides pull apart. The same issue would have come up again also. So in the past, also there have been a number of occasions where Chinese have transgressed into areas that India considers to be their own territory, be it in 2013, 2014, or for that matter, way back into earlier years under the UPA government also.
Right. Mohammed Shahrukh Hussain wants to know when was the last time a casualty occurred on the LAC. You've already talked about
Yes.
that. There's a question from Raman Ramalingam. What is the further course of action that India should take? Is it time for another big scale war? Well, as we've been saying in repeated episodes of Government Matters, really, we're not warmongers and there is no need for warmongering, but where do you see this headed?
See, I would not speculate on where exactly this is heading. This is for the military. There are people in the military as well as in the government who are keeping a close eye on this. But as I said earlier, whatever has happened in the past, all kinds of talks that were going on, we have reported in the past that India is for amicable solution through talks. But whatever has happened has been completely overshadowed by this particular incident.
Right.
So this incident changes the dynamics of the game as far as the continuing tensions of the LAC is concerned. There is no denying of the fact that the Chinese have transgressed in number of areas, especially the Indian authorities also accept that the issue at Pangong is a major worry. But yesterday's incident in Galwan has now brought Galwan under tremendous stress. Now this is also an area of huge issue as far as India is concerned.
Right. Nitesh Upadhyay, do we have our infrastructure in place at the LAC on the same lines that China has?
Well, no, of course not. We don't have the infrastructure in place at the LAC, just like the Chinese have. The Chinese have carried out a number of construction activities on its side of the LAC. On the side of the LAC, they have they have built roads. There are enough of infrastructure available for the Chinese in depth areas to provide support to the troops in case they have to move forward. India over the years have been trying to carry out a number of construction activities. This was something which was initiated way back in 2001, which picked up pace under the UPA under the UPA also. However, it was only in the last few years that this pace has really picked up.
Right.
So there's a lot of construction activities that is going on. It is to ensure that there is all-weather connectivity. As I mentioned in Government Matters earlier too, there are a number of locations. I'll give you a simple example. For example, there are a number of locations where the Chinese takes about half an hour to reach an X point.
Right.
And and if you calculate the time that Indians takes to cover the same distance, it's about 2.5 hours.
Right.
So that is the kind of gap that is visible at the LAC.
Right. Himanshu Gola, if the situation really escalates, how well prepared are we? Essentially, are we really prepared to deal with an escalation of this issue, or perhaps what can lead to a war-like situation?
Well, in case of a war, India has been involved in a war with China. This was in 1962. However, it was in 1967 that there was another smaller battle that took place in which the Chinese side had a lot of casualties and setbacks. So, if you're asking whether India is capable of fighting with the Chinese, of course India is capable of fighting with the Chinese. So, but this is purely speculative in nature about war. So I would not really like to.
Right, and I don't think we want to get into that
get into a
zone at all.
situation where we're talking about a possible war-like scenario, because war is always the last option.
Right. Vijay Ganpati, is this similar to the type of aggression China is deploying in South China Sea?
Well, the Chinese, if you've been reading the stories of ThePrint, both by me and my other colleagues, you will realize that China has adopted a very strong arm approach to a number of countries, be it Vietnam, be it in the South China Sea itself, or with India. So this is part of the muscle flexing that China is doing at a time when China is increasingly under attack from various countries over the coronavirus and the handling of the entire pandemic situation. So yes, China has been flexing his muscles, and what is happening at the LAC is part of Chinese muscle flexing that is taking place.
Right. Dinu Shetty, just like we all say that India wants to resolve this issue diplomatically, do the Chinese want to push military and escalate into a war-like situation? Is it in their interest? So is that the sense that one is getting?
If you're asking whether it is in Chinese interest to...
Right, whether China wants to escalate it militarily and not solve it diplomatically.
See, I don't think so. China would really want to, China, or for that matter, any country in this particular situation would want to, escalate an issue to a level of a war per se. But however, war is something that is always kept in mind while dealing with neighbors. Now, in this case also, while China is flexing its muscles, it is not really known whether, one tends to assume that China is not looking at a full-fledged war. And even if you see this current statement by the foreign ministry, even though they've spoken about this latest round of violence, and in which they have said that it was the Indians who intruded into the Chinese territory, they've also spoken about talks. But yeah, so that's, I don't think so that China is looking at
escalating it so much.
Escalating it to such a level. But however, as I said, the entire dynamics of what is happening at the LAC changes with this set of violence that has taken place last night, which has led to the death of 3 Indian soldiers, including the commanding officer of the unit that was posted in Galwan.
Right. So I know you're in a hurry to go, Snehesh, because there's a lot happening, but I'll take one last question, which is again Himanshu. How will this action affect the other sectors?
Well, the action will naturally have a spillover effect in other sectors too, and other sectors, not just in eastern Ladakh, but remember that the army has gone ahead and built up all along the LOC. And when I say all along the LAC, it doesn't mean just the Ladakh region, it also means the central, the Himachal, as well as the northeastern part. So yes, it will definitely have a ripple effect. But what kind of ripple effect, whether it's a serious ripple effect that one would see, one will really have to wait and see about how the situation, how the situation really comes about. As I said, the army has issued a very interim statement. The interim statement mentions that there was a violent face-off that took place during the de-escalation last night, in which there have been casualties on both sides. The army has said that one officer and along with 2 others have been killed in action. However, another statement, a detailed statement by the army is expected by evening, which would have more details. So there is a lot of information which is coming in at this moment from various
with no point
quarters,
in speculating on the fronts that there is no clarity on.
So as I said, while you follow everything that is happening on this thing, do log on to the print and read the stories to get an exact idea about what is happening at the LAC.
Right. So as Snehesh said, do keep track of the print. We'll bring you details of the next army statement, which we hope will give more clarity as to what has happened. Thank you for watching Government Matters, for sending in your questions. Do keep watching us on YouTube.